target of arms. Can you help me move the desk or can I do it?
You're okay.
Wow! Can you feel the excitement in this room? Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, for that introduction. It was just great. It was fabulous. It was just how I wrote it. Now, how many of you remember when gas used to cost 89 cents a gallon? It wasn't too long ago. I remember being able to fill up the tank for less than $20. And today, it costs $4, even $5 a gallon. It's surreal. You would think that the United States, being the largest consumer of oil, the president would be able to negotiate the price of oil. Incidentally, George W. Bush was recently in Saudi Arabia to do just that. So what happens? He gets a warm welcome, takes a tour of the oil refineries, and comes back with a price hike. I mean, if only he had used the negotiation technique I'm about to highlight, perhaps we might have gone back to 89 cents a gallon. Now, how many of you would have liked that? Let's see a show of hands. Wonderful. Okay, here's my promise. By the end of the speech, you will walk away with the secret to successful negotiation. So, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, listen very, very carefully. For here it is, the secret to successful negotiation, which is outcome-based thinking. Let's repeat. The secret to successful negotiation is outcome-based thinking, or OBT for short. The outcome-based thinking model is a simple yet powerful communication model that entails knowing your objective before entering into negotiations with others. The exact process is highlighted by 6 questions that you should answer when you sit down for negotiation. And what are those 6 questions? They are as follows. Number 1, what precisely do you want from the negotiation process? Second question, what does the other person want? And if you don't know, what are they likely to want? Third question, what's the minimum you can accept from the negotiation process? Fourth question, what obstacles or problems could arise during negotiation? Fifth question, how will you deal with each of those problems? And if possible, use it for the benefit of the other person. And the final question, how do you bring the whole negotiation process to a closure or a conclusion? Now this 6 questions form the framework for the negotiation model. Let me illustrate it with an example. 2 months ago, I got a $10 parking ticket. Now, apparently I had parked my car in the reserved spot on one of the campus parking lots at the U. Now, ordinarily, I would contest that ticket. After all, being a Toastmaster, I was pretty confident in my ability to talk my way out of the ticket. But unfortunately, I kept delaying going to the parking office. And as a result, with late fines, the ticket had now ballooned to $45. And to make matters worse, I got another parking ticket. Now, contesting one ticket successfully is challenging enough. But 2 tickets, that's really pushing it. So I decided to use the outcome-based thinking model in this situation. And here's how I answered those 6 questions. First question, what do I want? I'd like to avoid paying for the parking tickets. Second question, what does the other person want? I'm pretty sure they would want me to pay for the parking ticket. Now, to set the context, the parking authorities under you have a reputation for being overzealous with their authority. In fact, their antics had resulted in the moniker Bike Nazi. So I knew this was going to be a tough negotiation going in. The second potential problem was possibly their inability to negotiate, perhaps because they might not have the authority to void the tickets. Fifth question: how would I deal with each of those problems? Now, to address the first problem, I decided to admit fault rather than argue the merits of the tickets, and try to explain that it was a honest mistake. I was a new student, it was late at night, and there are very few cars in the parking lot, and the parking signs were invisible. So it's just an honest mistake. And to address the second problem, I decided to approach the supervisor rather than the front desk, essentially someone who had the power to void tickets. And finally, the sixth question: how would I bring the negotiations to a conclusion? I thanked them for being considerate. So this was my strategy going in. What do you think happened? Okay, I'll play. I still had to pay for the parking ticket. But it was a win-win situation. I avoided late fines. So that was a win for me. And from their point of view, I still paid for the parking tickets, but they avoided getting dragged into a lengthy and a tedious appeals process. So that was a win for them. Now, this is the point I want you to understand. Using the outcome-based thinking model, I was able to negotiate with an intention, and as a result, dictated the outcome into a win-win situation for both the parties. That is the power of the outcome-based thinking negotiation model. Now, I came up with a foolproof plan to avoid future parking tickets. And the plan was to buy a brand new Gary Fisher Road bus. So now I can park anytime, anywhere, without having to worry about parking tickets. Now folks, you don't have to wait for parking tickets to use the outcome-based thinking model. There are opportunities everywhere in your daily life. For example, you might be planning to ask your boss for a raise or a promotion, or you might be in the process of buying a car or a house, or even trying to negotiate an interest rate with your bank, or it might be just as simple as planning a vacation with your family. The outcome-based thinking model works equally well in all the situations. So, in conclusion, the ability to negotiate is perhaps the single most important communication skill you can learn. And with the outcome-based thinking model, you now have the master key to negotiate successfully. So what are those 6 questions? Number 1, what precisely do you want from the negotiation process? Number 2, what does the other person want? And if you don't know, what are they likely to want? The third question, what's the minimum you can accept from the negotiation process? Number 4, what problems could arise during negotiation? And number 5, how would you deal with each of those problems? And if possible, use it for the benefit of the other person. And the final question, how will you bring the whole negotiation process to a conclusion? So fellow Toastmasters, you now have the master key to negotiate successfully. As with everything, it will take practice. But with a little bit of time